You are watching Alabama Crimson Tide football recruiting on BamaInsider.com. My name is Trey Yanity, joined by best-selling author, recruiting expert, and Bama Insiders Andrew Bone. We're joined by you guys as well. Thanks for being here tonight. Hit that like button as we get into the show. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. We appreciate all of your support. And guys, get in the comments. We're going to take your questions at the end of the show. We had some good ones last week, had some great ones throughout the season, but I have a feeling for Iron Bowl week, you guys are extra excited to be in here. So get those questions in. But Bone, how are you doing as we enter this final week of the regular season?
Well, doing good. Just wanted to give my condolences to Cecil Hurt's family. News just broke that he has passed away. Tough situation. We knew that he was in the hospital battling pneumonia, and news just broke that he has passed away. I had a chance to work with Cecil for several years during my time at Tuscaloosa News. I started at Tuscaloosa News when I was just a junior in college, and it was a very unique opportunity for me. And Cecil was always just so gracious and just a nice guy to always kind of lend out his assistance. Always reaching out to me, always texting me, stuff like that. And he was just awesome guy. So sad day for the Alabama sports world and for the world. Cecil just he is obviously the GOAT when it comes to Alabama sports writers, and I know he's going to be strongly missed by a lot of people.
No doubt about it. That is incredibly sad news, and condolences to the Hurts family there. That is really tough news to start our show out with tonight. But, a lot of tough news around the country as well. Some coaches departing their programs a little bit early. We've seen some big programs make these decisions. Obviously, Florida the most recent. And with that, there's a new Rivals 100 recruit that has reopened his recruitment. Guy got the chance to see play this summer, a really talented wide receiver, Isaiah Bond, has reopened his recruitment. Now, Bone, do you think that Alabama has a chance now that he's back, with his recruitment opened up?
Yeah, absolutely. Isaiah Bond out of Buford High School in Georgia, teammates with Alabama commitment Jake Pope. This is a kid that visited Tuscaloosa during the summer. A lot of people were surprised. He had set up a lot of official visits, or I guess most of his official visits back in, I think it was about April, and then all of a sudden committed to Florida. He still said he was going to take all of his official visits, which he did. Took a visit to Alabama during the summer, took a visit over to Miami. When he took that visit to Alabama, it was, I think it was June, I want to say it was June the 18th weekend. Had a great trip. I mean, he even posted a video of him riding in the car with Coach Saban, and, really just kind of came out and said after that visit, whatever happens, that he's going to make the best decision for himself. But ended up sticking with Florida, and we really hadn't heard too much about him. And some people had asked me on the board about a month ago if Alabama was still interested, and I started digging around just trying to see if Alabama was still interested, and kind of found out that he had just not been really talking to anybody. Had kept things pretty solid with the Florida Gators, and he wasn't really going to make any changes. And then all of a sudden, you started hearing all this speculation. Obviously, some coaching changes a couple weeks ago at Florida. He ends up making a trip to Tuscaloosa this past weekend. And then obviously, I guess it was on Sunday. It was Sunday or Monday. I can't remember which day it was. It was announced Dan Mullen would not be retained. And, he decided the following day to reopen his recruitment. I think that Alabama has been on his mind a little bit over the course of the last, month or so, just because they really never gave up on recruiting him. They were recruiting him. They recruit a lot of guys that don't ever take a visit to Tuscaloosa. If a kid doesn't want to visit, that's fine, but they're going to continue to recruit them until the end, because you never know, something like this may happen. And obviously it happened, and he visited Tuscaloosa, and now Alabama, in my opinion, is considered the front runner for his commitment. Now, I don't know when he's going to make a decision. There's some talk that he could make a decision soon. There's also some talk that he could decide to wait until maybe even February to sign that letter of intent and make that final decision. So we'll see what happens. But Alabama, currently with 2 wide receiver commitments, 3, we always say this, 3 if you want to count Amari Neblock, who I kind of consider more as an athlete, but you have Aaron Anderson, Kobe Prentice, 2 extremely fast players, but this is another explosive kid. He won the Rivals Fastest Man Award at the Rivals 5-Star Challenge during the summer. He's been clocked at a 10.48 in the. I almost said 40. That'd be pretty bad. Alabama would be recruiting a pretty slow offensive lineman, but a 10.48 in the 100 meters, which is absolutely flying. So this is another guy that Alabama would love to add, and they would certainly take a commitment from him. We talked about a lot of receivers over the course of the last few weeks in terms of Shaz Preston, Kendrick Law, Evan Stewart. Barian Brown's going to be making his commitment tomorrow, which we expect him to go to Kentucky just because Alabama really kind of slowed down on its pursuit of Barian Brown this football season. So this is a very intriguing prospect that has jumped back into the mix for Alabama, and now it seems like Alabama's in good shape. Now, what does it? People always ask me, what will this do with some of the other targets? Doesn't really change anything. Isaiah Bond's not committed, so you still got to continue to recruit these guys. And I don't want to say it's the first to jump on board, but I do think that Alabama wants to add 2 more wide receiver commitments, and they have some good targets that are out there. And now Isaiah Bond's in the mix, and they certainly aren't going to turn down that speed.
No, speed kills. He is a very fast receiver. Going to be fun to watch that one. And a lot of these kids, now decommitting with these announcements. And a kid that I think we focused on a good bit throughout this season. A guy that Joseph L, who just hit us with a super chat in the comments there. Joseph, thank you so much for the super chat, getting in the comments tonight. And Joseph wants to know about Domani Jackson, as I'm sure the rest of you do as well. He decommitted from Southern California a couple weeks ago. His commitment is now certainly wide open. Alabama looking like one of the front runners there as well. Where's this situation now as we're a week further into it?
Yeah, Joseph, we really appreciate the super chat there, and obviously to everyone else that's watching, be sure to give us that thumbs up on our show. We really appreciate that. With Domani, I think Alabama is certainly in the driver's seat for him at this time after taking that official visit to Alabama a few weeks ago. Then he ends up taking an official visit to USC this past weekend. I don't know if people have seen the pictures from from the stadium this past weekend. There, might have been about 7,500 fans in attendance. So, I just don't see him going to USC right now, and I think that may have been kind of the nail in the coffin when he went to SC and just saw the lack of fan support. And he mentioned that a few weeks ago after that trip to Alabama, just the amazing fan support. Just everybody lives and breathes Alabama football. The whole city shuts down, for Alabama, and that's what he wants to be a part of. And you don't see that out at USC. Haven't seen that in a very long time. So he's going to take a visit to Michigan this weekend, where it's going to be about 35 degrees, maybe even a little bit colder than that. I don't know how much he's really going to enjoy that visit. I know he likes Michigan a lot. Now he's taken an official visit there in the past, and has visited there a few times and has shown a lot of interest. But I just don't see him going to Michigan, especially when it's going to be that cold this weekend. Sometimes that tends to scare off some kids, not kids from the north, but kids from the West Coast or kids from the South. That tends to scare people off. I remember, I did an interview with David Palmer, former Alabama star. Many people know, everybody knows, but I did an interview with him for my book, The Road to Bama, a few years ago, and it was funny because we were talking about some of the official visits that he took during his recruitment, and one of the visits that he took was to the University of Pittsburgh, and goes to Pitt, and said it was, he woke up and it was snowing there. He said, no way am I coming to this school, coming from Birmingham. So, I think the snow, it tends to scare, it would probably scare me off a little bit, but we'll see what happens. But I do think he's going to make that decision probably during that early signing period. And as of right now, I think Alabama has a commanding lead for Domani Jackson.
I know that makes a lot of people excited. I'm with you too. I can handle the snow for about a day, maybe two. Gets kind of slushy. That's enough for me there. Going to be fun to track that visit. It's going to be a great weekend up there for Michigan, playing Ohio State. But like you said, Alabama probably in the driver's seat at this point for Domani Jackson. Now, Christen Miller, a former name in the Alabama program, is being recruited right now in the Rivals 100 as well. He made his first visit to Tuscaloosa. I know you had the chance to catch up with him. What were his thoughts, his experience like for the first time?
Yeah, this is a defensive lineman from the state of Georgia, Cedar Grove High School, one of the top high school programs in the state. Had an opportunity to visit Alabama for the very first time this past weekend, and he tried to come over for the LSU game. He received an offer from Alabama that weekend. Was trying to get over. Ends up waiting until this past weekend for the Arkansas game, but had a chance to catch up with him, and he really enjoyed his trip. Came over with several teammates, talked to a lot of Alabama commitments, talked to a lot of Alabama players. He's pretty close with Terrence Ferguson, Alabama freshman offensive lineman, who's trying to recruit him. He spent a lot of time with Freddie Roach, Robert Gillespie. He said he met with Coach Saban for a brief minute, didn't get a chance to really spend a lot of time with him, but talked to him briefly. And he says that he's going to come back for an official visit here in December. Plans on announcing his commitment on January 8th at the All-American Bowl. Says it's between Alabama, Ohio State, and Georgia. Now, Georgia's kind of considered the team to beat for him at this time. Been to Athens several times. Has some friends who are committed to the Bulldogs right now, and I think they've done a really good job recruiting him. Recruited him for a very long time, whereas Alabama has just started recruiting him heavily over the course of the last few weeks, really at the start of the month when he received that offer from Alabama. So Alabama can get him back in for an official visit, which as of right now, he does plan on coming back for an official. They're going to have a chance there, but for right now, still leaning towards Georgia in the end with Christen Miller.
It's going to be a fun one to watch as well. Nothing like your first trip to Tuscaloosa. I'm sure he enjoyed it there, but Georgia in the lead there for that one. But Alabama had 4 official visitors in town this past weekend as well. 2 guys that are committed. Kobe Prentice along with Sean Murphy was in town as well, but 2 guys that are uncommitted. We got Curtis Perry and Ernest Green who made the trip this weekend. What are your thoughts there and the latest on these 2? And guys, continue to get those questions in. I've already seen some good ones down there, but a little bit light again tonight. We want those questions. Bone's going to take them at the end of the show. And as we wrap this show up, we're going to transition like we did last week into a college football playoff show where we break down the latest rankings. And like Bone said, hit that like button. Very simple to do. We appreciate all of your support. But the latest there on Ernest Green and Curtis Perry.
Yeah, Alabama had 4 officials. They were supposed to have 5, but ends up with 4. Obviously, like you said, Kobe Prentice and Sean Murphy both visited this weekend. Nothing to worry about with those guys. Pretty solid commitments. Kobe not going to be able to enroll early. Will enroll in the spring, so he'll be there in May. But Sean Murphy, 5-star linebacker, #1 inside linebacker in the country, will arrive at Alabama in January, so he'll be an early enrollee. But you had 2 other guys who were in town. First guy I'll talk about is Curtis Perry, the in-state defensive lineman, over 20 sacks during his senior season for Pike Road. Pike Road having an unbelievable year, in the state semifinals. Certainly have an opportunity to go play in the state championship in December. So, I think Curtis Perry certainly is a top defensive line target for Alabama, and really he was always kind of one of these guys that Alabama's always liked, and they loved this film. They wanted to see him in person because you had that COVID year where you really couldn't see a lot of guys, really see anybody outside of watching film. So he ended up coming to campus a little bit this summer. They liked him a lot, but he didn't work out. So kind of once they finally saw him this fall, and I'm not saying they weren't pressing for him, but once they saw him this fall, I think he really shot up their recruiting board, and they were just really impressed with him. They really want him as a part of this recruiting class, and I think he will join Alabama's recruiting class. Now, when that is, not really sure. Now, he says he's going to wait until December the 15th and announce his commitment during that early signing day, have a ceremony at his high school, but I can still see something happening before then. I thought maybe something would happen after this weekend, but hasn't happened yet. he is scheduled to take an official visit to Auburn this weekend, so maybe we see something happen after this weekend trip. We'll just have to kind of wait and see what goes on there. But I really like Alabama's chances with Curtis Perry, the in-state defensive lineman from Pike Road. Now, Ernest Green is a very intriguing prospect because he's a Rivals 100 offensive lineman from St. John Bosco Prep in California, one of the top high school football programs in the country. This is a guy that Alabama was really hoping to get on campus this summer. Once again, COVID really kind of shut things down where he really couldn't see anybody for a year, and it had so many kids visit during the summer, and they were hoping Ernest Green was going to be able to make it. He ends up not being able to make it, so Alabama didn't get a chance to see him until this fall. Holman Wiggins, Alabama wide receiver coach, who is the lead recruiter for the state of California and the West Coast, went out there, watched him play, really impressed, and they were able to get him on campus for an official visit this weekend. Now, I think Alabama's made a really strong move with him. He really likes Georgia a lot. I think Georgia's been right at the top or the top of his list for a while, but I think Alabama's really made things interesting with him. You really got to try to figure out, is Alabama going to be able to get one more offensive lineman, and who are they really going to press for? You have, we've talked about some of these other guys. Keontae Goodwin, who's committed to Kentucky. Can you get him to flip away from Kentucky? Are you taking a risk by potentially waiting on him to make a decision, not knowing whether or not he is going to flip? Devin Campbell, 5-star lineman out of Texas. A lot of people think he's a Texas lean, but as we've seen, Texas has really struggled on the field this year. 6 straight losses. Does that affect his decision? Does that maybe open the door up a little bit more for Alabama to potentially pull him in? I think Alabama's certainly in his top group right now, but we're just not going to know for sure with him until a little bit closer to the early signing period. And then you have Julian Armella, is a 5-star lineman out of St. Thomas Aquinas down in Fort Lauderdale, just named his top 4 this week with Alabama, LSU, Florida, and Florida State. I lean towards Florida State with him right now just because I just haven't seen Alabama make that really strong, heavy push at this time. I think, with guys like Keontae Goodwin, Devin Campbell, after they came in for visits, now you have Ernest Green. These are guys that they've, really liked a lot. And I think they're really trying to decide who's going to be that other guy that we really push for and decide to take. So you got some good options there. And I think Ernest Green has certainly entered the picture. Not ready to make a prediction just yet, and we'll kind of wait and see how these last few visits go for him. Then when he gets a little bit closer to making that decision, we'll make a prediction on him. But I think Alabama really made a strong impression. He had a great time with Coach Saban this weekend, shared some videos, and looked like he had a great trip.
Excellent to hear it. Excellent to see all 4 of those youngsters in town this weekend. And, there's supposed to be a 5th guy, Evan Stewart. And I've seen some comments about it here. Didn't make the trip. It was canceled for whatever reason. What went into that? And, where does Alabama stand now? Are they still in the running with the wide receiver?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was trying to get him back on campus. And unfortunately, he had a death in his family, so he wasn't able to make the trip to Alabama this weekend. Not sure if he's going to make a trip back to Tuscaloosa. There's not going to be a lot of time to make a trip back if he does decide to make that decision during the early signing period. It still looks like it's Texas A&M, Alabama still, strongly in the mix for Evan Stewart. Just, if I had to predict right now, I think he's going to stay in the state of Texas. I'd probably lean towards Texas A&M. Early, I feel like there's a lot of schools that have kind of led for him throughout the process. He was originally committed to Texas, and then once he decommitted, there was a lot of talk about Alabama. And they visited Florida during the summer, and Florida was the leader. He's taken a few visits to Texas A&M this year, and many feel like the Aggies are in the lead for him. But Alabama, like I said, still looking to add maybe at least one more wide receiver, probably 2, and you got some great options with Evan Stewart, Isaiah Bond, Shaz Preston, Kendrick Law. If Alabama can get 2 of those guys, I think they're going to be really excited.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And that leads us to our questions part of the show. And I want to start with a question about the wide receivers. There were some really good ones flooding in here at the end. And guys, you know the drill. You can continue to get your questions in as we get to them here at the end of the show. But somebody wanted to know, if Isaiah Bond does make his commitment to Alabama, still got Kendrick Law, you still have Shaz Preston out there. would Alabama lean to one of those guys more than the other? That question coming in from Samuel Wilkinson, and he wants to know which one is more likely to end up in the class if Isaiah Bond were to commit with Alabama.
Ooh, that's a good question. With Shaz Preston, both of these guys, Shaz Preston and Kendrick Law, they both visited Alabama. I think Law has visited twice. Preston's visited. I think he's visited 3 times. Preston was in Tuscaloosa twice during the summer, and once during the fall for an official. Now they're going to try to get him back for an official visit. Excuse me. I think I tongue tied myself a little bit. He was in town for the LSU game for an unofficial visit. They're going to try to get him back in town for an official visit in December. Kendrick Law has already taken his official. He was back in town for the LSU game for that official visit, and also took an unofficial during the summer. So more than likely, he's not going to be coming back to Tuscaloosa. But we've heard a lot that it could come down to Alabama and Texas for Kendrick Law, which, in my opinion, I would lean towards Alabama with him. But Preston is right there in the mix too. So I do think Alabama ends up getting one. Probably lean more towards them only getting one rather than both of those guys right now. They already have one wide receiver from Louisiana. I'd be surprised if they ended up with 3 wide receivers from Louisiana. I think, some of those guys may be waiting to see kind of what happens with this new head coach down in Baton Rouge. But I do lean Isaiah Bond to joining Alabama's class, and I think Alabama will get Law or Preston. And probably leaning towards Law a little bit more right now than Preston, but like I just said, Preston's going to come back for an official visit, and if Law hasn't made a decision by then, that could, and Preston decides he wants to go ahead and jump on board, that may leave Law out. So we'll kind of have to wait and see how it all unfolds.
Yeah, the timing is just so interesting on a lot of this stuff. And a great question there from Samuel to get us started tonight. And I got to move on to our guy, Joseph L. He's a little bit confused right now. Denver Harris doesn't make a lot of visits. Are there any updates on him where he stands right now?
Well, he doesn't take a lot of visits because most of this football season, he's really kind of been focused on getting back on the field. He tore his ACL during his junior season, and really been trying to get back to being fully healthy. And got back fully healthy about a month ago, and has been playing ever since. Now, he did take a visit to College Station this past weekend. I'd be surprised if he ends up at Texas A&M. I think they're probably running 4th on his list right now, behind Alabama, LSU, and Texas. But just because he hasn't visited Alabama this fall, I wouldn't really look much into that. He already took his official visit to Alabama back during the summer. He would have to make a trip. He would have to, obviously shell out a lot of money to fly to Birmingham and get to Tuscaloosa. And there was hopes that he was going to visit for the Arkansas game, but his team had a road playoff game on Friday night. It was a 2:30 kickoff, so it was a little bit more challenging for him to get to Tuscaloosa, especially if he was going to drive from the Houston area all the way to Birmingham. So that was going to be a little bit more challenging for him. So everybody sees that as him not interested in Alabama. Well, fun fact, Alabama defensive backs coach Jay Valai was actually in Houston on Friday to visit with Denver Harris and check out, I guess sit down with his high school coach, watch some film. Alabama's still very much in the picture with him and still heavily recruiting him. I still think Alabama's got a great chance to land him. It's going to be really interesting kind of see how this DB class all, shakes out in the end, because we know what Alabama currently has on its commitment list. I think Alabama will get Earl Little Jr. I think Alabama gets Domani Jackson. They would take Denver Harris. This isn't a situation where Alabama will only take 2 of those 3. They would take all 3. The biggest question is, will all 3 want to jump on board? And there's some other DBs that they're still recruiting that are out there that they're trying to get on campus for official visits. So because of that, I think that's why Alabama, will be open to taking 3 more defensive backs in this class. And, Denver Harris certainly remains a top target for the Crimson Tide.
Yeah. Been a lot of, complaints, conversations about the DBs on Alabama's current team. Those guys would bring a lot of help in that class. Next question is going to be coming from Luke Ferguson. He wants to know about Walter Bobb. What are the chances he stays in this class? And maybe just a recruiting update in general on Mr. Bobb.
Yeah, things have been pretty quiet for Walter since he committed back. Yeah, I think it was in February when he announced his commitment to Alabama. As of right now, I think he's going to end up having to go to junior college, for at least 2 years. So I think that's going to be the situation with him. And really all that I can say on that right now is we kind of expect him to end up going to junior college.
Good to hear it. Anthony Lucas up next, and Luke Ferguson with another question tonight. And guys, continue to get him in. Hit that like button. Thank you for being with us here tonight. And like I said a little bit earlier in the show, we're gonna have a college football playoff show breaking down the new rankings. Following this one, so stay on the channel. A lot to cover tonight. But Luke Ferguson wants to know about Anthony Lucas. Any update on him as well?
Nothing new. I mean, we had a chance to speak to Anthony after his second visit of the season to Alabama last week. Obviously, Alabama's got a great chance to land his commitment. I think it's probably a pretty tight race right now between Alabama and Texas A&M. There was all these predictions coming in on Texas A&M because he had taken 2 visits to College Station back in I think it was back in September, October. Well, now he's taking 2 visits to Alabama in November. So there's a lot of high interest in Alabama from Anthony Lucas. I think the biggest thing is sitting down with his family here in December and trying to make the best decision for himself and for his future. Alabama has some great defensive line commitments. With Jaheim Otis, Isaiah Hastings. I feel like they're going to end up getting Curtis Perry, and if they can get one more guy, they're going to be pretty excited. And I think Anthony Lucas is probably the best bet in terms of the other guy to end up in Alabama's class.
Jacoby Matthews is coming to Tuscaloosa on December 10th. Does Alabama have a chance with him? This question from Joseph L. as well.
Yeah, this is a very talented safety out of Louisiana, and he's coming in for an official in December as of right now. I think with Alabama's DB class the way it is and the guys who are still out there, I think it's going to be, I'd be surprised if Jacoby Matthews ends up in this class, especially with Denver Harris and Domani Jackson and Earl Little Jr. all still in the mix. Now, if they were to miss out on 2 or 3 of those guys, I think there's a chance that they could really make a strong push there. But until those guys say that they're going elsewhere, I would probably expect Jacoby to go elsewhere.
Good to hear it there. Thank you for getting that question and all your questions tonight, guys. Some really good ones. If there's any last minute ones you guys want to get in, Jarvis wants to know about Julian Armella. We touched on it a little bit, but kind of a wraparound here to end it on Julian Armella.
Yeah, I think he's going to stay in state. I'm really leaning towards Florida State with him right now. I think they're in the best shape. I think they're pushing the hardest for him. As I mentioned earlier, I think Alabama, currently sitting with 3 offensive line commitments, probably going to take 4. They like to take 4, and with Keontae Goodwin, Ernest Green, Devin Campbell, all still in the mix, I just don't think they're going to make a strong push until the very end. I think they're going to kind of wait and see what happens with some of those guys before a decision is made on Armella.
Yeah, good news there. And Joseph L., thank you so much for giving us another super chat tonight and getting in the comments with all your great questions. Your support goes a long way to help our channel and the rest of you guys as well. You've been a great crowd throughout this entire season on this show again tonight, and obviously some tragic news for the Bama family to start us out tonight. Again, the condolences, to the Hurt family there. Such a leader in our industry, in this city, and just the amount of time, the amount of people that Cecil Hurt touched. There's just absolutely no amounting, anything I could say here to amount what he did for this city and for a lot of people. So condolences there. But Bone, your final thoughts as we close it out tonight.
Yeah, obviously, really sad to hear about Cecil Hurt. I mean, that's certainly a tough situation. I've got another friend that's that's really going through some struggles right now, and certainly praying for him as well. I hope everyone on this channel has a great and happy Thanksgiving. Spend time with your loved ones if you can, and especially shout out to all of our military that's out there that's not going to be home for Thanksgiving, protecting our country. So we really appreciate all of you, and hopefully a lot of you are at home with your family this holiday season. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts, and happy Thanksgiving to you. But hope you all have a fun week, fun time during the Iron Bowl this weekend, and obviously we'll have plenty of coverage, recruiting coverage on BamaInsider.com that I hope you jump on board, read our stories, and we have a lot of great interviews. check out the story today by this Finnish offensive lineman that visited Alabama today. It's a free story on Bama Insider. It's on the front page right now. 6'7", 300-pound lineman that traveled to Tuscaloosa today. Alabama's in the driver's seat, so go check out that story.
Very cool story. Guys, go check out the rest of Bone's work. You can find him on Twitter as well at Andrew J. Bone. Go check out the rest of the work on BamaInsider.com as well as the YouTube page. You guys know where to find the best coverage in Alabama football. For Andrew Bone, my name is Trey Yanity. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. You can join us next week, Tuesday, 5 p.m. But until then, roll Tide.